You know that moment when you read the spec sheet and think nothing has changed, but the truck feels totally different the second you drive it. The numbers are the same, the engine name hasn't moved, and the brochure looks familiar, but behind the wheel, it's a different experience. Throttle response feels smoother. Power shows up where you actually use it, and the truck just works better in real driving. That's exactly what's happening with the 2026 5.0-liter V8. On paper, nothing looks revolutionary. The manufacturer is still calling it a 5.0. The truck model still lists 400 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. If you skim the brochure, it feels like the same old engine. The turbocharged option still looks like the smarter, faster, more modern choice. End of story. Except the manufacturer just quietly proved that assumption wrong, because the real change for 2026 isn't displacement, peak horsepower, or a flashy new spec. It's where the torque shows up, how it's delivered, how the transmission behaves with it, and what that does to your fuel costs, maintenance stress, and resale value over 5 years and beyond. The manufacturer didn't redesign the engine to win a brochure war, they redesigned it to win real-world ownership, and in doing so, they fixed the 3 things that kept a lot of buyers from checking the V8 box. For more than a decade, the manufacturer and the entire truck industry trained buyers to think in peak numbers. Peak horsepower, peak torque, peak tow rating, highest number wins. That's how the turbocharged V6 took over. On a spec sheet, it looked unstoppable. Massive torque, huge tow ratings, and better MPG numbers printed right on the window sticker. The naturally aspirated V8 slowly got pushed into the corner as the sound and nostalgia option. By 2026, the manufacturer is quietly admitting something important. That was the wrong war. Real trucks don't live at peak RPM. They live between 2,000 and 3,500 revolutions per minute. They live under partial load, heat, grades, trailers, headwinds, and stop-and-go traffic. They live in situations where torque delivery, thermal control, and transmission behavior matter far more than a single peak number. The new engine isn't about winning peaks. It's about area under the curve, usable torque, predictable pull, and lower stress over time. And that changes everything. So, what is the 2026 engine really? Well, the manufacturer didn't just toss out the old design. Nope, they doubled down on it. For 2026, the truck still lists a V8 with 400 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. But here's the thing. Dealers and internal materials are focusing on something a bit different this time. They're talking about refined torque delivery and fuel efficiency improvements, but, in language that actually makes sense to truck owners. Basically, that means a fatter mid-range torque curve, not just power way up at the top end. There's updated calibration too, not just logging for fake MPG numbers and then dumping fuel to save components. And with improved thermal and timing control, the engine now runs a lot closer to its efficiency sweet spot during real-world driving. And, this isn't just theoretical. Take a look at what the manufacturer is doing on the performance car side. The same engine architecture is now putting out up to 486 horsepower in the performance model and 500 horsepower in the high-performance version, thanks to upgraded internals, cooling, and durability. That really tells you something important. The manufacturer is still investing serious research and development into this engine. They're not just letting it coast into retirement. In the truck, that actually means the engine is deliberately detuned, not because it's weak, but because the manufacturer wants lower specific stress per horsepower, better heat control under heavy loads, more room for knock resistance with bad fuel or high heat, and of course, longer life when towing. So, the 2026 engine isn't a brand new engine, it's just a much smarter one. Now, let's compare the V8 to the turbocharged V6 and talk about the 2026 numbers that really matter. Forget the marketing for a second. Here's what the manufacturer is truly offering in the new truck lineup. The V8 gives you 400 horsepower and 410 pound-feet. The turbocharged V6, 400 horsepower and 500 pound-feet. And then there's the hybrid, with 430 horsepower and 570 pound-feet. If you just look at those numbers, the turbocharged V6 comes out on top. Same horsepower, way more torque, and higher tow ratings. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. The manufacturer just revealed what actually happens when you drive and own these engines, instead of just reading about them. Turbocharged torque hits early and hard, but it really relies on boost enrichment and aggressive thermal management to sustain that torque under load. When you tow uphill or into heat, the engine often runs richer just to protect components. That's real power, but, it comes at a cost. Fuel economy drops sharply, oil lives a harder life, heat stacks up fast. The 2026 V8's revised torque curve delivers honest torque in the 2,000 to 3,500 revolutions per minute band without relying on boost or constant enrichment. You lose the headline peak, but you gain predictability and consistency. For towing in the 6,000 to 8,000 pound range, which is honestly the range most owners actually live in, that matters more than peak twist. Dealer previews and early spec sheets show something interesting. The 2026 truck with the V8 gets 16 city, 24 highway. Turbocharged V6 gets 17 city, 24 to 25 highway. On the window sticker, the turbocharged option wins by maybe 1 mpg. In real towing and mixed use, it's often a wash. Sometimes the V8 quietly matches or even beats it because it doesn't spend as much time in enrichment. The turbocharged option brings turbos, intercoolers, plumbing, heat management, and aggressive calibration strategies. When everything is perfect, it works brilliantly. But when maintenance slips or uses heavy, things get complicated fast. The V8 is simpler. High compression, yes, but no turbos, less plumbing, and a more straightforward thermal picture. The manufacturer knows this. The 2026 calibration changes are designed to make that simplicity count. For years, the choice was simple. Turbocharged equals brain. V8 equals heart. In 2026, that line blurs. Earlier V8 plus 10-speed combinations often felt mismatched. Gear hunting, lugging, awkward low-speed behavior. The transmission was tuned around turbocharged torque and just copied over. The 2026 calibration is built around the updated torque map. Fewer unnecessary shifts, smarter grade logic, better lockup behavior, and less heat under load. The V8 won't beat the turbocharged option's max tow number. The key change for 2026, the V8 is no longer the emotional choice you pay for later. You can still ruin this engine with bad decisions. They live in situations where torque delivery, thermal control, and transmission behavior matter far more than a single peak number. The new engine isn't about winning peaks. It's about area under the curve, usable torque, predictable pull, and lower stress over time. And that, honestly, changes everything. What the 2026 engine actually is, the manufacturer didn't throw the old design away. They doubled down on it. For 2026, the truck still lists the V8 at 400 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. Dealers and internal materials, however, are emphasizing something very different. Refined torque delivery and fuel efficiency improvements translated into truck language. That means a fatter, mid-range torque curve, not just top-end power. Updated calibration that avoids logging for fake MPG and then dumping fuel to save components. Improved thermal and timing control so the engine runs closer to its efficiency sweet spot in real driving. This isn't theoretical. Just look at what the manufacturer is doing on the performance car side.